Get ready to be jolted out of the ordinary and into a world where conversations are charged with intensity and facts. The Lightning Strike Talk Radio with your host, Mohammed Faheem, broadcasting live from the heart of the city on Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio, WCPT 820 AM. Welcome to a radio show that charges through the airwaves with an electricity like no other. Here's your host, Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to our first show of 2026. Welcome to the Lightning Strike. We're going to have a candidates forum today for the congressional candidates of the 6th and the 10th congressional district. We'll be bringing them on shortly. But I wanted to start off by what the heck is happening in the world, folks. We have the Venezuelan president that we kidnapped sitting in New York now with his wife. Imagine someone coming in and taking out America's president. So we're going to take a look at how Trump's foreign policy, recklessness, and domestic militarization are pushing America towards a moral and an electoral reckoning in 2026. So I wanted to start off my rant for the year with this. America is rattling sabers abroad and unsheathing them at home. The Trump administration's approach to power in 2025 has fused foreign policy aggression, unconditional militarism, and domestic force into a single posture. Might makes right. Nowhere is this more visible than in Gaza, and nowhere is it more dangerous than inside the United States itself and now Venezuela. As we approach the 2026 midterm elections, folks, voters are confronting a stark reality. A government increasingly comfortable with violence overseas and increasingly willing to normalize coercion at home. So we're going to take a look at Gaza first, when foreign policy abandons the moral ground. U.S. policy towards Gaza has become a moral litmus test, and America is failing it. By offering near-blanket political, military, and diplomatic cover for Israel's devastating assault on Gaza, the Trump administration has signaled that civilian lives are negotiable when strategic alliances are at stake. International law, yeah, who gives a hoot about it? Humanitarian norms, nah. And even America's own stated values have been sidelined in favor of transactional loyalty. This isn't just about Gaza, folks. It's about setting a precedent. When the U.S. dismisses mass civilian casualties, collective punishment, and the starvation of a population as unfortunate but necessary, it forfeits its credibility everywhere else. Human rights become talking points, not principles. Moral authority, once America's soft power, evaporates. By 2026, a generation of voters, particularly Americans and voters of color, will remember who spoke up and who looked away. At the Lightning Strike, we are trying to speak up. And thank you so much for listening to us every Sunday. But beyond Gaza, the administration's broader foreign policy has leaned heavily on threats, escalation, spectacle. Trade wars are being framed as punishments. Military posturing treated as strength. Diplomacy dismissed as weakness. The Department of Defense, for God's sake, has been renamed as the Department of War. This approach destabilizes regions, alienates allies, and emboldens adversaries who thrive in chaos. Allies hedge their bets, autocrats take notes, and global instability feeds directly back into the U.S. economy through higher energy prices, disrupted supply chains, and ballooning defense budgets. Saber rattling may well play on cable news, but it carries real cost measured in blood, credibility, and dollars. So what happens abroad now never stays abroad. The same logic that justifies overwhelming force in Gaza and now Venezuela is now being repackaged for domestic use. Militarized policing, federal police against protesters, rhetoric that labels dissent as disorder and protest as threat. We've got two congressional candidates coming on for our first congressional forum today, and it'll be fun to ask them how they are going to treat this if they get elected. Immigration enforcement increasingly resembles military operations. Protest movements are met with riot gear instead of dialogue. Federal power is framed not as a public trust, but as a weapon to be wielded against enemies within. That's what our president has said. This is not law and order. It is order through fear. And history is clear. Once a government grows comfortable using force to silence opposition, the definition of threat expands quickly. So let's look at militarization, foreign and domestic. It is expensive. Trillions flow into weapons systems while housing, healthcare, and education remain underfunded. Cities pay for armored vehicles while social services are cut. Inflation worsens as global instability drives up costs and working families foot the bill, and our president seems to think that there's no inflation. By the time voters reach the ballot box in 2026, folks, many will connect the dots. Endless conflict abroad, shrinking opportunity at home. So the 2026 midterms will not just be about seats in Congress. They will be a referendum on whether Americans accept a future defined by permanent war, unconditional militarism, and domestic force, or demand a return to diplomacy, restraint, and human dignity. We're going to take a quick break and come back with our first congressional forum, but I just want to emphasize again, ballots, not bombs, is the future for America. This is the Lightning Strike. We'll be right back after a break.
Calling all residential and commercial property owners. If you're like me, you're sick and tired of paying high electric bills, which, by the way, are on the rise. You're also probably unaware of the federal, state, and utility incentives that you qualify for. Take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down this number, 630-785-0031. Again, 630-785-0031. Give Greenlight a call for a no-cost, no-obligation energy assessment, and we'll show you which federal, state, and utility incentives you qualify for. Again, 630-785-0031. Give us a call, 630-785-0031.
Welcome back to the Lightning Strike with Mohammed Faheem.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Lightning Strike, and it is time for the start of our first congressional forum. Every Sunday, we are going to have candidates from different districts of Congress coming onto the air. We are starting off with the Congressional District 6th and Congressional District 10th today. We did invite every candidate that is running, and we have got confirmation from Joey Rozovich, who is running for the 6th Congressional District. Congressman Sean Casten has not responded to multiple emails to come on the forum. So that goes to show you who he is answerable to, not the people, but to the people who are funding him. Okay. So we're going to have also the 10th Congressional District. Morgan Coghill is challenging Brad Schneider. Brad Schneider was invited to the forum, and Brad Schneider has not responded positively to coming on the air and just letting us know who he is, what is he running on, and by the way, the richest congressman in Illinois. His net worth is $30 million, folks. Come on. Okay. So, and you want to go ahead and represent the people with that kind of network. But let's not get sidetracked. So the format is very simple. We're going to have 2 minutes to each candidate to introduce themselves. And then we'll have our panelists. We have got Dr. Sheila White, former Congresswoman Marie Newman, and Reed Bible and Mike Patino. And this entire forum is sponsored by Aslan Consulting. That's Mike's company. So we are going to start off with that kind of an approach. Each panelist will have about 6 minutes total to answer some questions from each candidate, from our panelists. and then we'll wind up the forum. If you have any questions, if you'd like to join the conversation, you're welcome to call the studio hotline, 773-763-9278. Let me repeat that number, 773-763-9278. And this is sponsored by Ray Hanania of hanania.com. And it is called as What's on Your Mind? That is the segment for the phone calls. So with that, let me welcome our two congressional candidates. Good morning, Joey.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And good morning, Morgan.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, and let me introduce our panelists to you. Dr. Sheila White, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
And I see Reed Bible has joined us. Reed, good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everyone.
Okay, yeah, I forgot about that part, Reed. Okay. Murray Newman. Murray, good morning.
Good morning.
So, first show of the year, and we've got two excellent candidates that have joined us this morning, Murray. And let me introduce Mike Patino. Mike, good morning. Okay, I don't hear Mike. So Mike has Mike, I don't hear you.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year too.
No, we're talking about to Mike Patino.
You don't hear me?
I can hear you, but Mike, your mouth is not moving. Okay.
Yeah, he might be frozen.
Yeah,
He's frozen.
so Mike's video is frozen. That does not mean that he can't talk. And let's get the show on the road. Joey, I'm giving you 2 minutes to introduce yourself, who you are, what are you running for, what do you want to do?
Thank you. So my name is Joey Ruzevich. I'm running for Congress in Illinois' 6th Congressional District. I'm a software engineer. I was born and raised in Orland Park, which is in the district. And I think that right now America is in a crisis both economically and morally. And I think that these two issues are tied. Everybody from my generation is seeing that the American dream is slipping away from them. The ability to own a home and start a family is economically non-feasible today, especially on one salary, which was available to just my father and his father before him, the individual who came to America for that American dream. And I think that the reason why, one of the main reasons why we are in that economic crisis is because we are also in a moral crisis of sending all of our money to war. Now, I could talk about everything from the Vietnam War to the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, to now the war in Venezuela, or the illegal military operation, the regime change, the kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro, whatever you want to call it. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year on war instead of building up our cities, towns, and infrastructure. I'm also, as I mentioned, a software engineer. I spent time working for the Department of Defense doing machine learning research, and then I became a mobile app engineer for Silicon Valley tech company. And I am extremely concerned about technology, artificial intelligence, and data centers, and how those issues are also intertwined with the crisis we are in economically and morally. The data centers are driving up electricity costs at a rate of 14% increase year over year for the state of Illinois. And we are seeing a rapid desocialization of the youth, a minimization of the human to human contact that people have, an atrophying of the human brain and the ability to think for
Joey, so
themselves.
sorry to bust in, but
No problem.
we are
Sorry
on a
about
time
that.
crunch. So 2 minutes for introductions. And let's get Morgan to introduce himself. Morgan, good morning.
Good morning. My name is Morgan Coghill, and I'm the progressive candidate for Congress in the Illinois 10th. I'm a small business owner. I live in Mundelein. I've lived here for 10 years. I have a family, 2 dogs, 2 kids, etc. And like Joey, I'm a bit older than he is, but I see the American dream slipping away. As FDR put towards the American people during World War II regarding a second Bill of Rights. Well, I'm running on a platform on a 21st century Bill of Rights. And what does that look like specifically? Number one is a people's economy, things like a $25 an hour minimum wage, universal pre-K, universal child care. That's number one. Number two, justice is not an option. We are seeing masked men seize people off the streets just based on their skin color. and that needs to stop. We need to disband ICE in its current form. No unilateral criminalization of medical procedures. We're seeing it all over the country, whether it's women's bodies, transgendered people's bodies. This medical care is becoming, an actual crime in this country, and that cannot continue.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself and what your platform is. Let's get started with our panelist, with former Congresswoman Marie Newman, who has been there, seen that, with the first question. Marie, good morning.
Good morning. Well, we're going to kick it off with a big one, the affordability crisis that we have in our nation and working families. As a former Congresswoman, I see it every day, is that we, as we have gone into this, and I will call it an authoritarian regime, things are worse for working families than they ever have been. Our haves and have-nots we're at a critical juncture, right? So my first question is, and I'll go ahead and pose it to Morgan first. Working families, Morgan, are facing higher costs and job insecurity like they have never before, truly. What is your concrete, and when I say concrete, it can be big, small, or in between, but specific, like top three plans to lower costs without cutting social protections? Because one of our challenges has been, right, is that the go-to for this Republican-led Congress is to take away social service protections to service the 1%, right? We know that doesn't work. It never has worked. Trickle down is not a thing, all of the things, right? So tell me, what are some of the things you would do that would be concrete when you get to Congress? It can be legislation, policy, whatever. Please share.
Well, number one is tax the rich. As Mohammed pointed out, if we had a wealth tax on Brad Schneider's wealth of $30 million, we could fund Medicare for all for about 100 or 120 people just by taxing him. We need wealth redistribution, because right now the difference between the haves and the have-nots is so vast that someone who works at Walmart gets it coming and going. They pay below market wages, and then the SNAP benefits that those people get, they spend at Walmart for their groceries.
Mm-hmm.
That can't continue. Things like a $25 an hour minimum wage, federally mandated, which is where it should be if it had kept up with inflation, we would have been able to, we wouldn't be having these same issues. We have allowed the rich to get richer because they complain that any sort of regulation is going to limit job growth, limit opportunity, limit investment. Well, we've reached the tipping point, and we're probably over the tipping point. So a $25 an hour minimum wage and a 2% wealth tax. Those are two concrete steps that we would take to make sure that we could more even out the playing field from where it is today. Additionally, the highest marginal tax rate should go up, and the cap on Social Security contributions should disappear. People who make over $180,000 are not contributing to Social Security at all. So those who are lucky enough to make that much, come December, they think their paycheck is wrong and they talk to HR, and it turns out they're no longer contributing. Just by doing that, all of a sudden Social Security is solvent for another 30 years. So those are my top three.
Great. Quick follow-up. Money in politics has to do with our economy, because it's the reason we don't have Medicare for all. It's the reason we do not have climate change legislation. It's the reason we have a screwed up economy. So what would you say about money in politics? Share what your policy is around money in politics.
Well, if you look at donors, the people who donate money to you, that's a moral choice on their part and on yours. Who you accept money from is a moral part. If you are taking money from credit card companies, banks, insurance companies, and defense contractors, that's a moral choice. Right. So, I am for getting rid of Citizens United. We should not have unlimited dark money in politics. But additionally, I'm running a grassroots campaign. I'm not taking any money from corporate donors, and that's done on purpose. and it's made my life a whole lot harder, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to look myself in the mirror as to who my donors are. If you're taking money from Discover Card, you're not going to be providing protections against usurious and outrageous interest rates.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move over to Joey with same set of questions. So Joey, working families, you mentioned it in your upfront comments, are facing the very highest cost in job insecurity like never before. I think we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg with layoffs in Fortune 1000 companies. What are some of the concrete things you would do, legislation you would support, ideas you have around bringing costs down or making life more affordable in general without, and it's a big without cutting social protections?
Yes. So we can stop the price gouging and then ease up on other economic um, pressures. So, for example, Morgan Coghill mentioned Medicare for All. And I think that's an excellent plan that would relieve a lot of people's pocketbooks immediately. Well, we've seen the premium spikes once the ACA subsidies went away and how unaffordable healthcare was with the subsidies, and now even more unaffordable without, especially for a family of 4 or 5, let's say. And then back to the price gouging, we've seen it from the time of COVID when prices were going up 100, 200, 300% and costs were only going up 15, 30%. This is price gouging that the government has the ability to stop and to provide a windfall tax, a windfall profits tax on any company that is raising their rates that is outside of the rate of inflation. Additionally, technology is now being used to price gouge. More Perfect Union came out with a story regarding Instacart doing algorithmic price fixing on their app, which means that they are estimating how much people are willing to pay for a certain given product or service compared to another individual. So we are not being charged the same prices. I would also raise the federal minimum wage. It's been at $7.25 for since 2011, I believe, and this is just untenable. So absolutely raise the minimum wage federally, provide Medicare for all, and then stop the price gouging.
Excellent, great. And then a quick follow-up, and then we'll move on to the next set of questions. So corporate money, tell us a little bit about what your philosophy is around corporate money and then bully packs and the like.
Yes, corporate money, it runs politics right now, and all money comes with strings attached. The individual I'm running against, Representative Sean Casten, has taken over $470,000 from corporations. And of course, that comes with strings attached, as I mentioned. He sits on the Financial Services Committee and takes hundreds of thousands of dollars from Wall Street and private equity. And so that influences an individual's decisions when they're passing legislation. So first and foremost, the individual candidate must take a pledge to not accept corporate PAC money or accept PAC money that is bully PAC, like you mentioned, which is spent on behalf of a candidate to attack their opponent. So the individual has to make a pledge to do this, and then legislatively, we have to take steps in order to wash out the corporate money, because I agree Citizens United should be repealed, but that's going to require a constitutional amendment, and that's a lot of work. So what could happen right away is that Congress passes legislation in the form of, let's say, democracy dollars, so that every American gets to spend $500 only on a political donation to a candidate, and that money would then wash out the amount of money that corporations spend on a race.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey, and thank you, Marie. Thank you, Morgan, for answering those questions. And folks, if you have any questions for our candidates, feel free to jump in, and you can call. The call-in number is 773-763-9278 or 773-763-WCPT. And we've got our next panelist coming up to grill these candidates, and I want to bring in Reed Bible. Reed, good morning.
Good morning, Mohammed, and good morning, candidates. Thank you for coming on board here to talk today. I'd like to turn to the area of foreign policy, and I'd appreciate it if you could keep your answers to 1.5 minutes each, and I might have a follow-up question for you too. especially in light of what's happening in Gaza and the Israeli genocide going on there. I'd like to know from each of you, and we'll start off with Mr. Rusevich, should U.S. military aid be conditioned on compliance with international humanitarian law? If so, why?
Absolutely, because it's currently the law. There's something called the Leahy Act, and this requires that the United States does not sell arms or weapons or provide aid to any country that is accused of violating international law. This is a law that is currently on the books that is not being enforced, and we need to enforce the laws that we currently have. I would immediately cut off all aid to Israel because they are committing a genocide. And this is across the board. I'm not an isolationist necessarily, but I do believe that we have the money to build a much better society in America if we kept those tax dollars in America spent on our cities and towns and infrastructures and not on 900 military bases around the world, $1 trillion Pentagon budget in which they failed to pass an audit for 8 years in a row. And $170 billion to Ukraine that does not have an inspector general attached. And for those who don't know, an inspector general is somebody who simply watches over our money to make sure that there is no fraud or corruption involved. And we did not attach one to that aid, any of those aid packages. So there are a lot of things that we can do in order to stop wasting money on wars. And absolutely, we should require that countries follow international law in order to receive any aid whatsoever.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coghill, the same question to you, please.
No, I agree with Joey 100%. No, any international military aid should absolutely be subject to the fact that the recipient of that aid is in compliant with, not only international law, but U.S. law as well. Right now, there's a genocide going on in Israel. One of my first acts would be to co-sponsor and sign the Block the Bombs Act that Congresswoman Ramirez has put forth. I think that in the international sphere, I used to work for a USAID and a State Department contractor overseas in Russia and in Ukraine. I've seen firsthand what soft power does. It is far more effective. Walk softly and carry a big stick, as Teddy Roosevelt says. So we should be much more active. My view is a little bit more nuanced than Joey's. I think we should have quite a bit more international aid flowing. But yes, it should be conditioned, if we're providing military aid, on compliance with U.S. and international law.
Okay, Mr. Coghill, I have a quick follow-up for you too, please. What responsibility does Congress have when civilian casualties mount?
All of it. The Congress was formed in Article 1 of the Constitution. We control the purse strings. It is our job to put a check on the executive branch. The executive branch is to be our errand boy, not the other way around. It is incumbent upon Congress to make sure that the executive branch is behaving in a way that is commensurate with our laws and international laws. And we're going to have to get creative. Strongly worded letters and saying, well, the president should have asked permission first isn't going to cut it. We're going to have to be much more creative and much more aggressive in our oversight of what the executive branch is doing.
Thank you. Mr. Rusevich, I'd like to pose that same question to you. What responsibility does Congress have when civilian casualties mount?
Same as Morgan, 100% of the responsibility, because we do control the power of the purse, and we make the decisions as far as which aid packages are distributed and when and why. So certainly the president has a little bit of responsibility as the chief executive of the military, but the Congress controls the power of the purse. And so we have to be aware of all of the situations happening with our tax dollars, monitoring them and making sure that we have levers of power to pull that funding away from a country if the civilian casualties are mounting.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your answers. I'm going to turn over the next segment over to Dr. Sheila White. Dr. White, you're up next.
So, folks, before I bring in Dr. Sheila White, I just want to again say a couple of words over here. This is the first congressional forum that we are having over here on our show, The Lightning Strike. We had invited both the Congress people that are in place right now, Brad Schneider and Sean Casten, and they have not responded or joined the conversation today. So I just want to let everyone know that every candidate that is out there is being invited. And next Sunday, we are going to have the Congressional Forum for the 7th Congressional District. So don't, please do tune in next Sunday also. And let's get to Dr. Sheila White. Dr. White.
Yes, this question is for Joey. Joey, in your upfront comments, you mentioned a little bit about artificial intelligence. What precautions would you take to put up guardrails for youth and vulnerable individuals?
First and foremost, I want to ban AI chatbots for anybody under the age of 18. I think this is a detrimental technology. These are human imitating machines, and people under the age of 18 do not have a fully formed prefrontal cortex, and they cannot separate what is a human and what isn't a human. And so this is causing, as I mentioned, an atrophying of social abilities, a minimization of human-to-human contact, and ChatGPT in particular is being accused of pushing children to take their own lives, which is absolutely horrific. So the safety mechanisms that could potentially be put in place, I don't even think are worth going after. I think we should simply ban this technology for kids under the age of 18. That is not to say that we should ban all AI tools for everybody under 18. I'm a software engineer. I use AI tools for code generation. It helps a lot if you know what you're doing and you can have pre-filled code and you just gloss over it to make sure that there are no mistakes. That's a tool that could be used to help improve productivity, and I think would be beneficial to kids to know how to use, similar to a calculator. However, this human imitation is what I'm extremely concerned about, and that is causing a desensitization as well with kids, especially, and of course with adults too. We're dealing with a mental health crisis in our country, and these human imitating chatbots are only exacerbating it. So these safety mechanisms can be put in for people over the age of 18, but it's not going to happen until Congress forces the tech companies to do it, because this would be a profit costing to the tech companies, and they are not going to go against their bottom line unless they are forced to do it. Nobody in Congress understands this technology right now. Nobody's a software engineer. Nobody's worked on machine learning technology. So they are relying on the tech companies and their lobbyists to write the regulations for them. And that's why we need a software engineer in Congress.
Okay.
Yes.
Well said, Joey. Well said.
Next question. This is for Morgan as well as for Joey. What is one vote in Congress you would refuse to compromise on, and why?
One, I go first?
Yeah, go
Yes.
ahead, Morgan.
No, I would not. One of the things I've complained about my opponent, Brad Schneider, is he keeps falling for Republican gotcha votes. I'm not going to put myself in a position, for instance, the anti-Semitism messaging bill we had most recently, where there was a line in there praising ICE. Yeah, you're condemning anti-Semitism, but I'm not going to vote for that because I'm not going to praise ICE because Midway Blitz started a month later. I'm not going to vote to lionize Charlie Kirk, which Brad Schneider did. I'm not going to vote like Brad did on HR 9495 to give the secretary the entire ability to determine who's a domestic terrorist. And this was after Trump was elected. We knew who we were giving power to. I'm not going to fall for that sort of nonsense. So that's 3, not just 1.
Okay.
Joey, same question.
Yeah, I'll keep it to just one. It's Medicare for all. We do not need incrementalism anymore. We need full force Medicare for all covered the entire country, and including eye care and dental care as well. Because I think it's ridiculous that those are separate to begin with. We've constantly heard why it can't happen. Even during a global pandemic, nobody, in Congress was willing to really fight and push for this to the extent that I felt was necessary. But of course, I'm not in Congress, so I don't know everything that was going on. And I think that anybody that's saying that we need a public option or we need to fix the insurance industry is just giving credence to the Republicans to allow this broken healthcare system to continue. And that's why I think Medicare for All is a required vote for anybody that calls themselves a Democrat going forward.
We'll turn it over to our co-panelist, Mike, for next questioning.
Good morning. Good morning, candidates. I have a question for Morgan. In light of the egregious assault on Chicago from ICE, I have a question. How should Congress balance border enforcement with human dignity and due process?
Well, there are many ways. There are many ways to do it. We had a bipartisan bill before Congress that Trump shivved at the very last minute. No, but in terms of concrete steps, number one, we need to increase the number of immigration judges threefold. You know, people are allowed to apply for asylum. They shouldn't exist in limbo for 10 years. ICE keeps grabbing people on their way to their asylum hearings or even their swearing in for immigration. Yes, we can lock down the border. We can make it, harder to come in, but that's not what America's about. We should be able to process people through the asylum system when they come in much faster than we're doing it now. And that takes resources. Yes, we should have border checkpoints. We should know, who's coming in. But once people are here, we need to have a quick way to determine whether, they are criminals. As we know, about 70% of the people who've been rounded up in Midway Blitz have no criminal record. These are landscapers. ICE is jumping out of U-Hauls and Home Depot parking lots. So there is a balance. We've had a balance. Yes, under the Biden administration, it was ignored. We've had a lot of people come in and a lot of people living in the shadows. So by increasing the number of immigration judges and the system as a whole, we can bring those people out of the shadows and fully into American life.
Thank you, Morgan. Same question to Joey.
Yes, I would say that one of the best ways to secure our border and make sure that we have a great immigration process is to stop destabilizing countries around the world with our military operations. The reason why we had so many Venezuelan migrants coming to the United States was because we were actively destabilizing that country. Everybody wants to talk about the mass migration in Europe. Well, how about let's talk about the destabilization of all of the countries in the Middle East that led to people fleeing their homelands. I'm sure they would love to be able to stay and build lives there, but they're forced out because they're constantly being bombed by, most of the time, United States weapons and drones. So I think ending our constant march in militarism is going to do a whole lot of good for the asylum process. Of course, we also need to increase the amount of asylum judges that we have, and we need to fix our overall immigration process. My brother-in-law is an immigrant, and I saw firsthand how close, up close and personal, how messed up the current immigration system is. You have a lottery system. If you don't get picked by the lottery, then you have to be sponsored for a visa. And if you can't find a company to pay those fees to sponsor you for a visa, you're just SOL. Sorry, out of luck is the clean version of that.
Okay.
So, we need to have a multi-pronged approach of stopping destabilization of countries overseas, an increase in the amount of asylum judges that we have, and of course, to completely overhaul our immigration process so that people do have a pathway to citizenship. And we can say things that the Republicans say, like, oh, just go through the proper channels. Well, there are no proper channels right now that actually lead to citizenship. So we need to offer that first before we start claiming that people have to go through those proper channels.
Great. Exactly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, panelists, and thank you so much to our candidates over here. We have covered quite a bit of real estate over here in 30 minutes, Marie. So we got some time now for some more questions for our candidates. And by the way, folks, you are listening to the first Congressional Forum on the Lightning Strike, and we have got candidates from the 6th Congressional District and the 10th Congressional District with us on the radio today. And if you have any questions, feel free to call in, or you can even text us the question at 773-763-9278. I'm Mohammed Faheem, and the panelists today on the show are Dr. Sheila White, Reed Bible, Marie Newman, and Mike Patino. Okay. So having said that, Marie, let's bring you back in. We've got some time, and let's see if we can get some more information out from our candidates over here.
You know, interestingly, I just got a text from a friend who's listening in right now, and his kids live in Illinois 10, and he
Okay.
lives in Illinois 6. And so it's germane to both of you. I will tell you, this particular friend of mine is very candid. So I will read it to you.
Okay.
I will extract one word and rephrase it.
Yeah, if you could please make sure that the FCC and the FEC
we won't use the particular word that we
don't come down our neck on these things.
So Marie, please ask the candidates if they can distinguish and differentiate and delineate themselves from the incumbent, meaning like what the heck makes them better and different, and why should I vote for them?
Okay, let's start off with Joey first.
Sure. So, first and foremost, I am not bought and paid for by corporations or corporate PACs. I am a grassroots campaign. I only answer to the people. Second of all, I am not going to be a middle of the road, do nothing Democrat, which is what Representative Sean Casten is right now. He has not sought or achieved leadership positions in Congress in his 7 years in office. And I believe, Marie Newman was co-chair of the Transportation Committee as a freshman in Congress. So it's there if you want it. And if you want to make a change, you can go and seek those leadership positions to try to pass legislation in a way that's going to benefit the American people. And third, I would say my expertise in software engineering, machine learning, and artificial intelligence separate me from everybody else across the nation, really, that's running for office, because I think this is one of the major issues that we're going to run up against, both with foreign policy, the targeting systems that are being tested in Gaza, being brought back to be used in ICE, and the algorithmic price fixing that we see in the apps, and the data centers causing the electricity rise. It is all connected, and we need somebody that understands technology. Representative Casten does not.
Thank you, Morgan. If you would do the same, there's a special little add-on from my friend that his kids are in Illinois 10 is he says, his claim, not mine, he claims that for whatever reason, Illinois 10 seems to like the current incumbents kind of middle of the road, do nothing. Even when I talk to residents there, they seem to like that he never gets into trouble. So please help us with that.
That is not going to be my problem. Joey, I am going to, I have my own business. This is, if I wanted to do the same as everyone else, I wouldn't be doing this. I have lived overseas. I have my own business. I have 2 kids. I'm not going to DC to just do more of the same. I understand business. I understand international trade. I'm bilingual. I am not bought or paid for by corporations, just like Joey. So my priorities are different. They're always going to be different. The people who are contributing to me, they believe in what I'm doing. Now, in terms of, the middle of the road, don't get in trouble, I think that one's played out. I mean, we're a D plus 17, 18 district. This isn't some purple, middle of the road district. This is the sort of district where we can have aggressive, younger progressives in office. We're going to go there and raise hell, as opposed to people who are just like, well, let's work with the MAGA Republicans until they kick us in the behinds again.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. White, any follow-up questions for our candidates? We've got 10 minutes to finish off the segment. So folks, again, you're tuned in to the lightning strike on WCPT 8:20 a.m. And by the way, thank you to everyone for getting up this early in the morning on a Sunday morning to listen to what we are saying over here. Go ahead, Dr. White.
Yes, this question is for Joey and Morgan. What limits should exist on presidential power, especially in times of crisis? Morgan, you can go first.
Well, I think we need to repeal immediately the authorization of force from, what was it, 2001, 2002, dating back to, just post 9/11. That this is the area where Congress has really shirked its responsibility. It is a co-equal branch of government. That means that we have a responsibility to put a check on the executive branch, whether that be through oversight or the power of the purse. In times of crisis, if it's a crisis, prove it's a crisis. Prove it to the people who are the elected representatives. Joey and I are going to be the closest DC representatives to the people in our district. We owe them explanations as to why we think it's a good idea to bomb Caracas and kidnap foreign heads of state. So I would put, there's reason, like I said before, Article 1 forms the Congress, Article 2 forms the executive. And we need to lean more into Article 1 than into Article 2. No more imperial presidency.
Joey, same question.
So the two most important things are reducing the amount of power in a crisis that an executive has, or excuse me, like Morgan said, the explanation of why this constitutes a crisis. We need to have clear outlines of what would constitute a crisis, because what happens is that Trump will claim that everything is a crisis and therefore has emergency powers all the time. So we need an outlined explanation of what constitutes a crisis before they can claim a crisis is happening. And then we have to have a clear rolling back of those powers as soon as the crisis is over. Because one thing that we know, especially with the Patriot Act, is that once civil liberties are taken from the people and powers are given to the government, they do not get given back. And so we need to have a process in which those civil liberties are protected and those powers are returned essentially to the people after a crisis is over, because it is being used and abused by these authoritarian leaders such as Trump.
And my next question is, what does democracy require of leaders when elections don't go their way? Go ahead, Joey.
Sure. It requires grace, and it requires honesty, and it requires the ability to admit when you've lost. So, of course, you need to make sure that there are excellent standards put in for elections so that the people trust the institutions. But we should not have this constant claiming that one election is stolen to the next. So the ability to lose gracefully is very important for a leader, to not be a sore loser to the point where you're, rallying up people to storm the Capitol.
Same question, Morgan.
Yeah, our 250 years of history are dependent on the peaceful transfer of power, that the losers acknowledging that they lost. And, in order for us to get back to that, yes, we're going to, people who lose need to understand that they lost and not scream fraud. It is, our election system, one of its strengths is just how dispersed it is. It is virtually impossible to have a wide scale election fraud in this country because it's run at the township, state, county levels. There are a lot of moving parts, and then the state board of elections oversees everything. We need to understand that we have some of the safest, securest elections in the world. And despite what our friends on the other side of the aisle say, who scream that, no, hey, it's all rigged. I hate that Democrats always have to be the adults in the room, but we have to be the adults in the room if we lose.
We got about 5 minutes to finish off this hour, folks. And excuse me, sorry. A question for both of you guys, okay? What will you do if the party is wrong?
I'll jump in. I will go against the party because I'm a principled individual and I am not beholden to the leadership of the party. The best example that I give is that I believe Democrats should be pro-union and should stand up for the working families of America. When in 2021, the railroad workers across America threatened to strike because they wanted one single day of sick pay on their monthly contract, President Biden of the Democratic Party sided with the owners of the railroad companies, the barons. And nobody in Congress stood up, including Representative Caston, stood up and said, hey, we're supposed to be the party of the working families. We're supposed to stand up for unions. And that was a shot to a signal to the entire nation that when it really comes down to it, the Democrats will not stand by you if their leadership does not allow them to stand by you. That's what's going to be different about me is I will not listen to the leadership of the party. I will have my principles and I will stand on them firmly.
Okay, same question, Morgan.
Uh, it's basically the same answer, but one good example is a lot of our Democratic colleagues, they take a lot of money from pharmaceutical lobbies. There is no earthly reason right now why Medicare should not be able to negotiate drug prices for all drugs, not just insulin and several others. 35, don't get me wrong, $35 price cap was a victory. It was a good victory. But Medicare is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. They should be able to go to Eli Lilly and Pfizer and say, no, we're not paying this. You get to raise your prices on people in Europe or in Canada, but here, no, you don't get to make all your profits here off of the backs of Americans. So I suspect there's going to be a lot of pushback in the Democratic Party on that, but this is one that we need. We can't go forward with drug prices the way they continue to be.
Okay, we got 3 minutes to finish off the segment over here. Folks, you're tuned in to the Lightning Strike on WCPT, 8:20 a.m. We come every Sunday morning from 8, excuse me, from 8 to 10 a.m. Man, there's a frog in my throat today, Marie. I don't know what's happening. Okay, our panelists have been Marie Newman, Read Bible, Mike Patino, and Dr. Sheila White. We are going to come back on the other side of the hour with more information and more programming from Read Bible, and Marie is going to come in with her segment. So I want you to stay tuned. Our topics this week include the Epstein update, Jack Smith bombshell, Venezuela tensions, and what to expect in the big races coming up. That would be at 9:15. Dr. White, let's get another question in from you.
Sure. My next question is for both of you. Name one policy you support that may be unpopular but necessary. You can go first, Morgan.
Unpopular amongst whom, just for clarification.
Okay, and please limit your answer to like 30 seconds if you could,
Okay.
because we're about to finish off.
Unpopular with the Democrats, actually.
Oh, I believe that, well, no, I believe Medicare for all. There are a lot of Democrats who are not getting behind it, and we need to push that one forward. Additionally, there are other things such as I believe in farm subsidies. A lot of Democrats aren't for it. I believe that we should make sure our farmers are supported.
Okay, same question
Joey,
for
same
you,
question.
Okay, so I might go a little bit off of what Morgan said with the farm subsidies. Yes, we should be helping out our farmers and not just big agriculture. But I think that the corn specific subsidies that we have are a World War II era policy, and those need to be redistributed towards regenerative farms or cattle farms or producing something other than corn because we've run out of uses for it. We're trying to burn it now. And it's just not as effective as we thought. So I don't think that those corn subsidies should necessarily continue in the way that they currently are. But that does not mean to yank the rug out from underneath our farmers. Of course, we need to continue to support them instead of sending $40 billion to Argentina so that they can undercut us with their soy sales to China.
Yep. On that note, folks, it's 9 o'clock. Thank you both for joining us. And please do stay tuned in next week for our next forum. And we will continue the conversation on Facebook as we go while the station, excuse me, while the station takes a break for the top of the hour news. And thank you also to our panelists and Mike Patino, Dr. Sheila White, Reed Bible, and Congresswoman Marie Newman. Excellent questions and excellent responses from our candidates. All the best to you guys. And hopefully we'll see you back and we will see you in Congress next year.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Likewise, thank you, and happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you, guys. So let's continue the conversation off the air now on Facebook. And while we come back at 9:05 with Reed Bible for his take on what is happening in the country and the world, we don't have Adriana and Dolly joining us today, Marie. They are taking a break after their examinations.
Oh, I'm sure. God bless them, right?
Yeah, I hate the college vibe that I had to have. I loved college, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but those examinations and
Oh,
exams and all of those things, man, they killed me.
I
Okay.
know. When my kids went through it, it was like a trauma flashback for me.
Okay, so I'm looking at my grandkids now, and they are starting to go to school. I'm like, man, the next few years are going to be fun for you, or maybe not so fun. So, folks, you're tuned in to the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning from 8 to 10 on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk radio station, and the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. Mike, how was your first ever radio show today?
It was very exciting, very
Okay.
exciting. Especially that I love that glitch where I just shut down the beginning. That's
Okay.
always really nice. I was going crazy, jumping around. My poor wife was fixing it up for me like she usually does.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So we are
very, very much needed show. I'm honored to be here, honored to be a part of this program, and look forward to working with you in the future to see if we can get excellent candidates like Joey and Morgan in Congress next year. This is so important for them to be visible and have everybody actually see them, probably most of them for the first time.
Right.
Okay. That's awesome. And Reed, thank you so much for holding on. We got about a couple more minutes while the station is taking the station break.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I was very impressed with those two candidates, very articulate on a wide variety of topics. I think they would make excellent members of Congress, and I hope that we'll be hearing from them again in the near future. As far as Mike's first appearance on radio, Mike, when I was asked by Mohammed to join the team, I told him I have a face that's perfect for radio.
No.
And then he goes and he puts us on screen anyway with Facebook and YouTube. So my plastic surgery operation is scheduled for next week.
Oh my gosh, stop it. Stop.
Get out of here.
Well, I like the fact that both Mike and Reed have excellent hairstyles.
We're up to speed on that. Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
So,
He's married to Miss America. He's married to Miss America. Keep that in
Hey,
mind.
Mohammed, I just
Yes, I
we
am.
got a caller, Howard.
Okay.
He was just wondering if he could ask the congressional candidates a question, more specifically, if they lose the primary, would they support whoever is the winner of said Democratic primary against a Republican opponent? And so I don't know. Are you taking calls? Do you want him to state it? How you want to do it?
The candidates are already gone.
Okay, I'll just let him know that segment ended.
Okay, yeah, the segment has ended, but if he has any other questions that he wants to bring up to our panelists, he's more than welcome. The panelists are still here.
Yeah, I think I could just put him on if you'd like or whatever.
Okay.
Cool. We're about to come back as well, so I'll let you rejoin it.
Thank you so much. And that's our producer in the studios at WCPT, Dylan Altoff. And Dylan is doing a marvelous job with us over here. So you are tuning again, folks, to the Lightning Strike on WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk radio station. I'm told that we have a caller with a question for our congressional candidates. Unfortunately, the candidates have gone, but let's see if we can answer that question that the candidate has or that the caller has. Boy, I'm stumbling over my words today. I don't know why. Okay. So yeah, go ahead and bring the caller in, Dylan. We'll be happy to answer. But it's 9:06, and I want to get with the programming while we are waiting for the caller to join
You should
us.
be on the line.
Okay, let's see. You're on with the lightning strike. What do you have on your mind?
I think it should be a mandatory question for all future candidate forum members to see if they would support the Democratic candidate against the Trumpist Republican in the event they lost the primary.
Okay, wonderful. So stay tuned. We have the 7th Congressional District coming in next Sunday, and we'll be sure to ask that question on your behalf, okay?
You should do it with all the candidates.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you so much for calling in with that question, and thank you so much for listening in. We're going to go back to Read Bible to say what Reed has to say on his segment today, and then we are going to, about 9:15, we're going to go with Congresswoman Marie Newman, and then 9:30, we have Maria Muzaffar should be joining us by then today, and if she's not, we'll continue the conversation. Reed, go ahead.
Well, Mohammed, as we approach the 250th anniversary of the founding of the nation, this is an appropriate time, I think, to end slavery once and for all. Yes, it's a shocking thing to think, but slavery still exists in America. I don't think that most Americans realize it. Despite Lincoln's characterization that America was conceived in liberty, that was really for white men, particularly white men of means. However, America was also conceived in slavery for the rest of us, and it has been with us since 1619. One might ask, I thought that slavery had ended in 1865 with the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. However, a closer reading of that amendment indicates that only ostensible, outright legal slavery of Black people was ended. The text of the 13th Amendment prohibits chattel slavery or involuntary servitude, quote, except as punishment for crime. This loophole has given rise to a whole inmate forced labor system on both the federal and state levels that is tantamount to slavery. The 13th Amendment prohibition of slavery was circumvented early on by this punishment clause to contrive codes known as the Black Codes and with vagrancy laws aimed at restricting the freedoms of Black citizens alone. Violations would usually result in criminal convictions and imprisonment would ensue. While imprisoned, Black people could then be, quote, punished with slavery or involuntary servitude imposed by penal institutions without having to violate the 13th Amendment outright. While some courts have ruled that slavery cannot be imposed upon criminal convicts, they have also held that, quote, involuntary servitude can be punishment because it's not slavery. They've distinguished involuntary servitude from slavery because the state does not claim ownership of the inmates' bodies. Folks, this is a distinction without a difference. There is no discernible difference between forced labor without any or negligible pay under inhumane and dangerous conditions and outright slavery. This false distinction of involuntary servitude imposed by the state has rendered inmates to the status of prey for profit, labor to be exploited by both public and private penal institutions, as well as private sector industries that have contracted with penal institutions. All these entities maximize their profits by minimizing the compensation, if any, given to inmates who are then forced to work. Even in cases where there is compensation, it is well below market rates. This forced labor even includes immigration detainees. It is also disproportionately comprised of racial minorities. The inmates are used for everything from crop and livestock raising to call centers and handle sales and complaints. This practice has encouraged mass incarceration to establish a modern-day penal slave workforce, forced labor that enriches people other than the inmates. While the United States is only 5% of the world's population, it has 20% of the entire world's prison population. We have a higher incarceration rate than China. Prison labor abounds on both the federal and state levels, too often infused with cruelty. In Arkansas, for example, there is a prison-operated farm known as the Cummings Farm, a 16,500-acre plantation on which crops and livestock are cultivated by forced inmates. These inmates work 10-hour days, 6 days per week, without pay. Those who resist work are beaten with straps or threatened with extended solitary confinement to incentivize them to work. During the COVID pandemic, sick inmates were still forced to work in close quarters with other inmates. One prison official suggested that inmates who need money can sell their blood to a blood bank. Other such penal colonies exist, such as the infamous Angola, which is the Louisiana State Penitentiary, known for its harshness in working prisoners to death. There's also Parchment State Penitentiary in Mississippi with a similar reputation. And on the federal level, the U.S. Bureau of Prisons operates a for-profit corporation known as Unicor, or Federal Prisons Industry. It has industrial, service, and agricultural operations. It also operates 63 factories, 2 farms, and 52 prison facilities, using over 11,000 inmates as laborers. Slavery has not ended in America. It has just evolved. The aim should be to establish voluntary work programs that pay market wages to prepare inmates for re-entry into society and provide them a means to maintain sanity while confined, not exploit their labor for profit. Taking profit out of incarceration should be a major step for reform of the criminal justice system. Some of the businesses, entities that use inmate labor, you are very familiar with, things like Best Western, Bama, Budweiser, Burger King, McDonald's, Cargill, Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola. We got Walmart in there, Home Depot, Lowe's, Costco, and Whole Foods. In fairness, I should mention that Costco and Whole Foods unwittingly exploited prison labor through a vast supply chain, and they actually have corporate policies against it. But it is time for the Constitution to be amended again and prohibit involuntary servitude as punishment for criminal convictions.
Folks, that's Reed Bible, and Reed has an excellent background in a lot of other areas also. He was the special supervisory agent for the Department of Homeland Security before he retired. He's also an immigration attorney. So, Reed, you bring up an excellent point. I don't think that many people have really paid attention to it. I think we should be asking this of our congressional candidates also. Yeah, it is ridiculous. The amount of money that these people are paid is a pittance, and the conditions conditions are so horrible. I have been inside a prison in Texas, Reed, when I was doing when I had my construction company. We had gone to take a look at, they had some problems with the foundation in the prison. And so all the contractors were invited to come and visit the facility to see what the conditions were. And it was just terrible to see people locked up like animals in cages. Yeah, I understand that when you have violated the norms of society, you have to pay the price. But if someone is exploiting you on the back end, that should be something that we should be looking at. It's 9:14, folks. You're tuned into The Lightning Strike. I'm your host, Mohammed Faheem. Joining me today, Mike Patino is still on with us. I see. Mike, thank you so much for staying on. And Reed Bible, Dr. Sheila White. And today, we don't have our 2 interns, Adriana and Dolly Silverberg. And Murray is going to be talking about a lot of stuff on a lot of stuff, not a lot of stuff. Come on, Murray. Okay, so let's bring Murray Newman into the conversation. And if you would like to join the conversation, feel free to call us. The number to call in is 773-763-9278. Again, 773-763-9278 or WCPT. So if you want to go back and listen to the program again, folks, you can find it on our website, which is www.tlsradio.com. That is www.tls for the Lightning Strike Radio.com, or on our YouTube channel, which is / basically Okay, so we got Wasim Iftikhar on the line. Let's, Murray, can we take a quick phone call
Sure.
and then go into your segment? Yeah, if we can get Wasim Iftikhar on the line, please. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Faheem. Congratulations on a very successful program. I'm just calling to express my concern about the general atmosphere that is prevailing in our beautiful country. I have seen the pendulum swing back to an extreme McCarthyism era where people are being targeted for what is not a constitutional demand from us, because everybody's free speech is under fire. The atmosphere has changed so much in the last 10 years. I just wanted to make sure that people understand that this is the time not to sit down, but to have your voices heard. And towards that end, Faheem, I really appreciate your program. And I just want to say thank you to you, and also wish everybody a ton of luck for what they're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for calling in. Let's go back to what Murray has to say on today's segment that she always comes back in with some great information. And Murray, today's topics, Epstein update.
Yeah, we'll start with that, but
What's happening that?
Oh my gosh. What I thought I would do is recap, and there's a reason.
Okay.
First of all, welcome to Ignore at Your Risk. Each week we look at stories that folks are either ignoring temporarily or have forgotten about, or some sub-stories within larger stories. So the reason I bring up Epstein files this week is for a couple things, is that distraction is this current president's kind of modus operandi, correct? He does it all the time. Much like, and I'll go back to Reed's segment for a hot second because he did a great job highlighting a really important issue that we are ignoring. So I do want to start there before I go into Epstein files. So thank you, Reed, for bringing that up. Very few people know that our for-profit prison system has grown so very much, particularly in the last year, but it has been growing for 20 years, to be clear. And so Reed's notion around that this is literally straight up slave labor, straight up, there's no other way to describe it. It is astonishing in this country, but not astonishing underneath this authoritarian regime, right, that we have right now with Trump. But do note about what Reed was saying, that not only are these people not paid, but they are treated so incredibly poorly during service that it is, yes, they are put in prison for reasons, some of them. But the more important note that I took away from Reed's comment is that why do we have more people in prison per capita than any other country by a factor of what, 1 or 2? And so the reality here is that the whole system has to be looked at, and we have to take a more serious approach around restorative justice. So I just wanted to park that there and put a point on Reed's comment. So Reed, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We are ignoring that issue. Other things we're ignoring now that we have taken over a sovereign country. So let's be clear, folks. All of these things that are happening right now, in addition to the fact that this very president is an oligarch, is only concerned with his own money and his friends' money, he also is very good at distraction. One of the things he is distracting from, and I don't want anyone to ignore, is the Epstein files. So let's go back for a hot minute and look at what has occurred. So in the past week, there's been some major developments regarding the files. The one that makes me laugh very heartily is the fact that AG Pam Bondi has indicated that there's 1 million more potentially related documents. So interestingly, we'll remember Bondi and Kash Patel, FBI director, supposedly had thousands of FBI agents going through all, and they kept stressing all of the documents, right? So now there's, like, interestingly, a whole new batch of them that they didn't know about, which honestly I have a hard time believing. So with that, this discovery is now putting the timeline off. So I'll quote Thomas Massey and a few of the others that have been talking about these files and the kind of piecemeal approach that they're taking. There's two things that are concerning. Not only are they really being flagrantly abusive to the law that was just created, that Congressman Massey and Congressman Khanna put forth and was signed into law. So they're really obfuscating that. But the second thing, there's two other really critical items here. Is that one is that it's not only the slow drip, it's that what they are leaving out. I'm more concerned about what they're leaving out. Now, remember two things. There's an inventory of everything, so we know what will be left out, and we will highlight it as an American public. But just know it's more important what they're leaving out at this point, because the most damning stuff is what they're leaving out and redacting. Through this ongoing review, they're saying, well, we're trying to take all the victims' identities out. Well, interestingly, all of the Republican donor identities are being scrubbed too. So just remember, Republican identities are being scrubbed along with the victims. Of course, we want to protect the victims. We do not need to protect any donors, whether they are Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Independent. We all agree that I don't care what Democrat is in there. Let's have it be aired out, right? Couple of things have come up, and this always happens in these big cases like this, is that indeed that letter to Larry Nassar within the files was in fact fake. So there was supposedly a letter from Jeffrey Epstein to Larry Nassar that was supposed to be very damning, ended up being fake, just to be clear. But as we go through this, folks, just remember that what's on this Justice Department website where the files are being downloaded to, be more aware of what they're redacting and what they're not providing than they are with what they're providing. And what they're providing is still very bad. So just keep that in mind and don't ignore that issue, as we are all very concentrated on Venezuela. And we're going to get to Venezuela in a hot minute, but I do want to talk about Jack Smith. His testimony was fascinating before the Judiciary Committee. It really, I guess I'm remarked by the fact that Jack Smith remains down the middle of the road and remains very lawyerly in his approach in fairness and objectivity. You can see, honestly, he clapped back at both Republicans and Democrats for trying to put words in his mouth. And I just want everybody to understand that a real DA, a real prosecutor, a real government official, that's how they should. So he presented in such a way that I want everybody to understand that's how every public servant should be operating, is that when either side is wrong, they should respond to that. So a couple things that came out of that, there's some fallout from this and some takeaways. So the takeaways go like this, is that Smith did testify that, in fact, he had not made his charging decisions completely public, nor has he made up his mind fully about the co-conspirators in charging Trump. So the former special counsel said he was never officially decided whether to bring additional charges against the figures he alleged were Trump's co-conspirators. Well, he was confident that he had enough evidence to, in fact, charge Trump. The co-conspirators, he wasn't there yet. So the folks like Sidney Powell and Giuliani and Eastman and Boris Epstein, he hadn't quite gotten there yet. But Trump, he felt like he did have, in fact, enough evidence to indict him. A couple of other takeaways that are interesting. He was very objective and sober about how he presented that there was no political bias. And I think he did an outstanding job, and I think we need to give him kudos for that. He even talked about the retribution piece, that he's very confident that the president wants retribution, but he also assured this committee that that is not going to change my mode of thinking or my ability to look at the facts. And a couple of other things. This is a great quote during the testimony from, this is Jack Smith speaking. Given the highly uncooperative nature of the individuals that you all talked about, they mentioned all of those folks I just mentioned, I didn't think it would be fruitful to question them. And the sort of information they could provide us, in my view, wasn't worth immunizing them for their possible conduct. So in other words, he didn't immunize these folks because there may be other issues around other topics. So this is kind of a brilliant lawyerly thing to do, right? Like, is that, you know, not only is it a waste of my time because they may or may not lie, they may or may not have anything, but there may be bigger fish to fry in another pond, which I thought was fascinating. And then finally, with regard to Jack Smith, he really went after their phone records and understood the cadence of things. While he didn't have recordings of the current discussions that they had that we have access to, he had a lot of cadence around it. So there's just a lot of damning information around who spoke when to whom. And then, I think it was interesting to note here in the respect of objectivity and understanding both sides of it. He wasn't completely convinced by Cassidy Hutchinson's comments because a lot of it was centered around, I heard X from Y. I heard, Mark Meadows say this, but maybe she wasn't in direct conversation with Mark. So I was so pleased to see that Jack Smith did such a great job with his testimony. So at the end of the day, I think we had a great American experience with this Judiciary Committee, that Jack Smith revealed that he, in fact, had enough to indict Trump, and that the others he wasn't necessarily looking at right now, which tells me two things, is that case is so damning, he doesn't need the co-conspirators. That's kind of wild in these types of big cases. And then the second thing is that, in fact, that's a possibility as we move forward. Because remember, folks, while President Trump is immune from any of his professional ne'er-do-well activity, like invading Venezuela, and we're going to talk about that next, he is not immune from any personal activity, all of the Epstein activity. So and then also his personal activity in the Jack Smith case, where in fact he took files he should not have. And there's some sense that he was doing something with those files. Was he potentially looking to sell those files? Did in fact he do that? All of those are questions. Those are alleged facts. Yep. Venezuela, wow. We all know what we know right now, right? We know that President Nicolas Maduro and his wife landed at Air Force Base, Stewart Airport Base in New York on Saturday afternoon. They've been charged with narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation, conspiracy, and weapons offenses. So first of all, narco-terrorism, is that really a thing? Conspiracy, yes, there is a charge such as that, but is there a narco-terrorism conspiracy? I've not seen that in the penal code, but okay. The U.S. launched a wide-scale air, land, and sea attack. Two things there is that I just want to remark that our current president, how he described this event, at one point he said it was spectacular, as if he was watching a fireworks event. Just let that sink in, folks. No president, Republican or Democrat, in our 250 years has called it spectacular as if they were a fan watching an event. Just know that about this guy. And then in his true, I guess, authoritarian / heavy on the / business background, he indicated that when reporters said, okay, Mr. President, what will we be doing with Venezuela after this? How will that work? How will leadership work? Who's in charge?
We are going to run the country.
Yeah, we're going to run the country. Who says that? CEOs say that. You don't say that. And this is regime change. Let's call it what it is. In fact, I don't think Trump is even afraid of that term, but it is regime change. So what's interesting is that he doesn't feel that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is actually a person that he would look to run the country. In fact, she's on state TV.
To serve as the interim president, right? Maria Delcy Rodriguez, she by law, Venezuelan law, she should serve as interim president.
But he's not indicated that, right? And that's a problem, I think. So, we all know, I'm not going to be redundant here, and we all know that the reason that he has put this regime change plan in place is because he wants their oil reserves. But the bigger story here, in addition to the oil reserves, is who gave him that idea. Fiona Hill, former part of the diplomatic brigade and expert on Russia, heard many times in his first regime, and from 2017 to 2021, Trump say things like, well, Putin says that I should have that Venezuelan oil because, quote unquote, it was taken away from us. Well, it was never ours, to be clear. But he really feels justified. In fact, there may be some quid pro quo around that. So let's understand why and what that is. And then I also just want to share, this is a very quick thing before we throw it back to the group here. There have been this is a very much an ignore at your risk topic. There have been postal changes, folks. I want everybody to aware. The mail-in ballots dropped off on time might receive a later postmark. So they'll be postmarked later than perhaps they were. So if you put it in on March 16th at midnight, it might get postmarked up to March 18th or 19th during our primary here in Illinois. There is a rural disadvantage going on. Rural areas are disproportionately affected by fewer collection points. So there's fewer places to put your ballot into. This is all voter suppression. So understand, and I just want to share this with our listeners, is if you do a mail-in ballot, it is safe, but get it in as early as you possibly can so you do not fall into any of these problematic areas. Get it in early, make sure it's filled out properly, and get it in early and in a place that is designated. So I just want to make folks aware of that. Moving forward, we're going to be talking a lot more about candidates and big races in the US. I'm going to be spending a lot of time on my Substack around those races and some of the kind of campaign secrets nobody knows. Having been through a bunch of campaigns and observed every type of activity, I'm going to share some things around super PACs, red boxes, campaign tactics and maneuvers that voters don't understand. And I'll be sharing a lot around that as we move forward. So with that, that is ignore at your risk, and I'll throw it back to Mohammed.
Okay, Marie, thank you so much. I think Maria is still traveling, so she is out of the country. She will not be joining us today. I don't see her joining the conversation today. But I'm glad you brought up something very important about the new USPS postmark rules, Marie.
Yeah.
And I just want people to be aware that these are going to also apply to our taxes. I remember the days when we used to go out at the last day to get our taxes in, and there will be a line around the block in front of the post offices. So, folks, remember the Postal Service has updated how postmarks are applied. Okay, so instead of postmarking mail when it's dropped in the mailbox, the USPS may date the mail when it actually reaches a processing facility. So if you are trying to get your mail-in ballots in time, make sure that you go at least a couple of days or more before when you drop in your mail-in ballots. It's going to be very important coming up. They're trying to suppress the votes like with this maneuver now. And this is so important for us to understand that it is our country. We've got to take it back. And we can only take it back by being continuously aware of what is happening. So let's switch the conversation a little bit and look at what is happening in New York, Marie. So we have a new mayor in New York.
Okay. Happy news. Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing that he did was, first off, he did not come in a limousine for his first day at work, which is very refreshing. Yeah. He took the subway to work, which is very refreshing. And then he went in to visit with someone who has got an apartment that is basically falling apart. Okay. So Mamdani ran on a platform that included rent freezes, universal child care, public transit improvements, and corporate tax increases. These are policies tied to his democratic socialist alignment. And here's what happened now. So he goes in, and the first thing that he does is obviously he revoked many of his predecessors' executive orders to reset City Hall and launch his agenda. That is going to be fascinating when the next president comes into place, Marie. And I want your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So he is sticking to his platform, right? Is that he is addressing the things he said, I'm going to freeze rent, make the city more affordable, and have some free buses and all the things, right? And all of which you can do in a pilot format to see every good leader, whether they are a government leader, a public service leader, nonprofit, or for-profit, every good program starts with a pilot where you study the solution and try to make it better. So with all those things, I love that he's talking to a current renter on the horrible condition of her apartment and talking about because as I have said in every executive capacity that I've ever had, is that talk to the people that actually have the problem because they actually understand the solution as well or better than you do. So make sure that you really talk to those people. So I think he's doing everything that he said he would. And by the way, I just want to be clear. You can call this purple. You can call it democratic socialism. You can call it democratic, Republican, libertarian. You can call it anything. These are all just really practical solutions. And so that's what, I'll talk about the free grocery or the collective grocery shop idea. He had said, look, I'd really like to have the public own some of these grocery stores so prices come down. And by the way, none of the other grocers were upset about it. You know who's upset? And food manufacturers weren't upset, is that the Phil Ackmans and the other billionaires in Manhattan were upset because they just don't like it when common sense solutions actually work, that working family solutions work. That's why they didn't like it. So he is doing everything he said to. He is starting to get at the solutions for working families, and the billionaires won't like it.
Okay, let's bring in Mike Patino, who is still holding on with us today. So, Mike, what do you think is happening in New York, and how can we take this democratic socialist agenda forward over here, for example?
Well, that's an interesting question because, we don't know what's happening. I mean, he's got him, it looks like walking around down hallways, surrounded as a prisoner. And probably Marie would know better than I would. There's got to be some kind of diplomatic connections that we can use to find out how we can, or what are his next steps. I was watching in amazement yesterday on CNN, which I shouldn't really watch, but but it was like the most exciting with all the bombs blowing off and everything.
Well, I was talking more about Mamdani and New York, Mike. And some of the things that he has promised to do, he's already started to do. And I want to I want to be aware of where the roadblocks are going to come in, Marie. Like you're talking about Phil Ekman, for example. These guys are going to be, madder than hatters, okay, because he's making things work.
Well, interestingly, so let's look at these billionaires who in California, they've said, I'm taking my bat and ball and going home if in fact there's a billionaire tax. That's what they're looking at right now in California.
Yep.
In Chicago, Ken Griffin said, hey, I'm going to take my bat and ball and go to Florida. And guess what? Now he's grumbling that he doesn't like Florida and that, well, maybe Chicago wasn't so bad, right? And then now in New York, Ackman and all of these other CEOs are saying, oh my gosh, I'm leaving the city right now. And to which I say, okay, sweet pea, go ahead and do it because crime will go down right away because when you've been stealing dollars forever, right? So I think crime will go down right away when you leave, percentage wise. So for me in Chicago, I'll go back to the Griffin example, is that look, crime has gone down in the city, and Mayor Johnson is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There's things I disagree with him on, but there have been some good adjustments. There's been lots of boo-boos, but look, that's true in any mayorship. But all of these billionaires that threaten to leave a place whenever a Democrat gets in to power, it always backfires. So good luck to all of those billionaires who don't like it when we make progress.
Okay, we got Dr. White still holding on. Sheila, I want to bring you back into the conversation. Some of the issues that were brought up by our candidates today, I think they make a lot of sense, especially with the corporate money coming into our elections. What do you think of the candidates, Sheila?
Well, before I make a comment on the candidates, I want to just bring up something that Reed said, which was so important. He talked about slavery, and it's interesting that the names have changed over time. We call it now human trafficking, you know. And when you think about that, that just involved the use of force, fraud and coercion of that to obtain, some type of labor or commercial act. In America, I just want to emphasize that it's still recruitment going on, transferring and harboring and exploitation of humans. And so I think it's so important that he did bring that up, because we kind of turn our head and look the other way. But this is happening in the backyards of America, in rural and in larger and smaller cities. Slavery is still happening, and we just are calling it human trafficking, whether it's sex trafficking or work labor. It's still in effect. As far as the candidates were concerned, it was like a breath of fresh air, hearing their voices, hearing their concerns, hearing their comments of what they're trying to do. I think there needs to be term limits, because we need to hear fresh voices like this, for candidates that are running for office, and to bring in new energy into the congressional districts and things along that line. So I thought it was just a breath of fresh air to hear their voices, and to hear not only younger voices, but just people that are even older, but they just have a fresh outlook. So I thought it was really, really awesome. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from the other congressional primary candidates in the future.
So, Reed, I want to switch back to you now. What do you think of our two candidates who came on today?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with Sheila. They were like a breath of fresh air. This is progressivism. This is economic populism, and this is what America wants. We're tired of this class warfare going on, in which this very small percentage of our society has a huge portion of the wealth, while the rest of us suffer and even go without health care. It's got to change, and this new class of candidates are the ones I think that will make it happen. I also want to mention to Dr. Sheila that she talked about what I said with the prison segment, that I don't think it's a coincidence that we have the largest percentage of prisoners in the world, when we have all this exploitation by the private sector of free prison labor. We've got all these privately owned and operated institutions, so-called correctional institutions. And we've had in the past, even judges who have been found corrupt because they have deliberately sentenced people to these institutions, and they're going to get a kickback from the profits that will be made through the exploitation of that labor. And it's even included children being incarcerated. So it's just a despicable thing that we could eliminate this year if we can get something like this through Congress. This is really an abomination for a nation that's supposed to be conceived in liberty, that we still have such draconian institutions here. So I appreciate what Sheila was saying about that. With respect to Congresswoman Marie, I appreciate what you said about the Venezuelan terrorism going on. We have terrorism, and we have narcotics trafficking, and then we have this conflation where narcotics organizations use terrorism in order to further their narcotics trafficking. But as far as I know, there is no separate federal statute that's called narco trafficking.
Right. There's both of those things separately, right? But this conflation, and I just think it's irresponsible to make up your own penal code. That's my only statement on that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's obviously being used as a ruse to do regime change. It's about the oil. It's not about the narcotics or the drugs, 100. Because otherwise we wouldn't have pardoned former President Hernandez of Honduras, who trafficked tons of cocaine into this country.
For a very long time. And probably because Trump keeps using this figure that, hundreds of millions of people have died. Well, that's not possible statistically, but many people have died.
Marie, 300 million, he claims, out of a population of 350 million in the country.
I don't even ever, his math is beyond my ability to discern. So I never think about his math, but I will tell you this is that, Reed, this is where the irresponsibility factor Reed very adroitly showed us that, look, there is a terrorism charge, right? And there are some narcotics charges that can be for, but to constantly make up your own terms and your own penal code, which this is not the only instance he's done this, is that it's so irresponsible. That's what I mean to highlight with that. It's so thank you, Reed.
Well, it's 9:45, folks. So you're tuned in to the Lightning Strike. We come every Sunday morning, from 8 to 10 on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk radio station. Our website is TLS for the Lightning Strike, tlsradio.com. And you can find this program on our website and also on our YouTube channel. You can also go back to SoundCloud to listen to this program again. And we are going to be having snippets of the program on different social media. So coming back to the elections now, Murray, I am really concerned about the low voter turnout.
Yeah.
So I want to bring Mike back into the conversation over here. Mike, what can we do to bring in more people, not just for voter registration, but for people to actually come out and vote? What should we tie? How do we light a fire under people?
Well, being a former union officer and transport workers union, and when I was in Los Angeles, we used to have major rallies slash voter registration drives, and just bringing the attention to ramping up the momentum towards getting towards the vote, because we found out you try to remind people too early about voting and they don't even relate to it. Like right now, we've only got a couple months left to go, so it's great knocking on doors and telling everybody within a couple months they get the primary coming up, and people can grab onto it. So it's like timing is really important. Rallies are really effective. We had a lot of mail outs from the union, getting our members out on the streets and talking to people, bringing out the awareness of union households we target. And the union households would have two excellent candidates like we have now, and then push their union agenda and give the people something to think about that other than just get out and vote. I mean,
Murray, what do you think that we need to do? I feel that we should tie the elections to rent, groceries, healthcare, Gaza, the policing, schools, wages, use real stories, not slogans.
And I think the new guard is. So the new candidates are definitely doing this. So look,
Yeah.
let's broaden the lens for a hot second. It looks like we have the ability to capture 30 to 40 seats in Congress in 2026. I think that's a realistic goal, and it could very well happen. I do think that we're going to be back in power with a great deal of confidence. So that's good. I'm less confident about the Senate. So how do we get people to turn out the vote? I'm recommending, because every candidate that I'm working with comes to me and is like, well, we're going to do voter registration. Well, in an off-cycle year, yes, bravo, you do that. That's exactly right. We do not have time for registration right now. It is a very hard effort to do that. What we do have time, to Mike's point, is work with our union brothers and sisters, other organizations, to create excitement to those that actually are registered, right? Now, if there's groups that are working on registration and the fringe, that's great. But right now, we're in the last three months of or 2.5 months of the primary cycle here in Illinois. And there's several March primaries. So all of those folks should be concentrating on GOTV, which is get out the vote, right? And so work with your union brothers and sisters in all of these groups to get people excited on the topics you just expressed, right? All of those topics get people motivated to get out, but also get people excited that what Morgan and Joey said is that I'm not going to be a do-nothing Democrat. I'm actually going to get something done, and I am going to really be much more proactive in my approach and transformative. We no longer as a public, and centrists say this too, by the way, nobody wants incrementalism right now. Nobody wants these little like tiny nibble at the edges solutions. We need big, bold, transformative change. So those are the things we need to get voters excited about and get them out the door.
I think we also need to highlight primaries, not just the generals,
Yeah,
Marie.
agree.
And
Right.
we need to show how incumbents can be challenged.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
And we
Because
have
everyone
to,
believes that it's not possible. Well,
yeah.
this girl right here did it. So, you know. Yeah.
And we have to elevate first time and outsider candidates, you know.
Right.
And people like Joey and Morgan,
Yeah.
boy,
Grassroots. Yeah.
it was so refreshing to hear from them real life scenarios and real life answers, not just regurgitated things that some consultant told them to say,
Right.
Exactly.
and if we can normalize those kind of things, I think we still have a chance of our country surviving. We have to emphasize, folks, that authoritarianism doesn't arrive overnight.
No, it does
It's
not.
elected, okay? We
No.
elected these people that are there right now, and they're not doing a good job. So if they're not doing a good job, challenge them. And if they don't want to change their attitude, get rid of them.
That's right.
Our rights aren't lost all at once, Marie. It does not happen overnight. They're chipped away.
That's right.
And silence is not neutrality, okay? It's consent. So when people rise and they take back the country, and I always say that every Sunday I'm saying this, that our country is our country. It's the government of the people, by the people, for the people, and we are the people. Okay,
That's right.
True. Very true.
It's not somebody
Mohammed, I would
that.
just like to
Yeah, go ahead,
just
Sheila,
wanted
please.
to I just wanted to say one thing in reference to that. I think expanding opportunities to vote at the same day voter registration, or possibly restoring the right to vote for citizens with felony convictions. We talked about so many people that are incarcerated. They
Right.
don't have a right to vote. That could make a difference because they're hearing from their family members and other people of what's going on the outside. And there's about like 23 different states that allow eligible young people to pre-register to vote before 18. I think 17 and 16 of ages. And then also more convenient placement of accessibility with precincts and voting centers. Because with this redistricting and things, people are having a hard time of getting out where they can vote and those types of things. So I think that's some things that could help, especially the restoring the right to vote for citizens with felony convictions.
Sheila, I think you know what? Now you've got me thinking, and I remember 2, 3, 4 years ago, Illinois legislature may have indeed passed a bill that the formerly incarcerated and incarcerated can vote. It's not I think it was based on the level of conviction, right? If it was a felony or
Yes.
not. I think so. Now I have to look that up. That's because that is so important. When you have paid back your time, and you have shown that you want to be part of society again, you should be honored with a vote. You have done your time. So
And
I'm with
especially
you
when we
100%.
have, Marie, especially when we have a president who's been convicted of
I know.
34 felonies.
The irony. Oh, the irony.
Look at the irony of this. And I want to finish off today's show with the top 10, at least, recent false or misleading claims by our felon. Okay. Trump said that each intercepted drug boat from Venezuela saves 25,000 American lives. This is a figure not supported by data on overdose deaths or the drug movement patterns. Okay. And this is coming straight from AP News. I'm looking at it. And false claims about homicides in Washington, D.C. He incorrectly asserted no killings occurred in D.C. over the prior 6 to 7 months. Can you believe that? Okay.
Not true.
So misleading statement about crimes in Chicago and LA also. Trump claimed that the National Guard deployment and crime reductions in areas like Chicago and Los Angeles in ways that don't match reported policing actions or crime statistics. Okay. Trump has also claimed that inflation has stopped. Marie, do you know that?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah, he
actually
declared that
hasn't.
inflation has
Yeah,
stopped, and when he declares it, it must be correct, right? But official data shows inflation stabilized around 3%, not stopped, and
yeah,
long-term historical inflation has been higher at many points in US history. Also about gas price claims, let's not forget that.
yeah.
Trump
Mohammed,
said gasoline was under 250 per gallon in much of the country. I don't know, has he ever gone to a gas station to get gas?
Well, he's never had to buy anything himself. I
Yeah.
mean, let's be very clear. He's never probably been in a grocery store.
Yep. And so this is yes,
Mohammed,
yes, Reed.
I was in Palm Springs, as you know, a few days ago. I paid $4.65 per gallon of gas there.
Oh,
Ooh,
I
not
saw,
according to our president, sir.
I
Not
saw,
according to our president.
there was a Republican congresswoman from New York I saw on television yesterday claiming that, oh, gas prices per gallon were down like $1.50 a gallon, that we don't need Venezuelan oil. I thought that's a crock. You know,
Okay. No, hey,
they're all
Reed,
capitulating right now, by the way, on that. All of a sudden they're all falling. I mean, with the exception of Massey and Green, like the rest of them are
yeah,
saying, yeah, let's invade. That's a good model. Yeah,
Mhm.
way to go.
yep.
Yeah.
Trump has also claimed that the US has attracted about $18 trillion in new investments since he took office.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't
You know
know.
what?
I mean,
By the way, he is that number is correct. The definition is wrong. I just want to be clear on that. He says we brought in 18 billion in tariffs, which actually is a possibility, but they've all been dismissed and canceled out by the fact that prices have gone up by between 20 and 100%. So like there is no extra money anywhere.
no, Murray. He claims that he attracted about $18 trillion in new investment. We're not
Oh,
talking about
trillion,
spending.
18 trillion?
Yeah,
Oh, I haven't heard that one. Oh my God.
in
See,
new
this is the
investments.
thing. Like when you use it, it's like saying that there's a gazillion,
Okay.
right? It's like it's this childish, silly term.
Well, and he has repeatedly debunked climate claims such as suggesting global cooling narratives or mischaracterizing clean energy like wind and solar costs and impacts. I mean, this guy, the how do you know that Trump is lying? Any idea, folks?
His lips are moving.
Oh,
Yeah.
come on, really?
Exactly.
Okay. Mike, it's we got 3 minutes to finish up the show. Any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? You are our guest for the first time, and I would like to really get your feedback on what do you think about our format over here? What do you think that we are trying to do? And do you think we can improve on what we are doing?
Well, I am just so excited to be a part of this. It is something that I was looking for. I was searching in California. I was searching for it in Texas, and then I found it here in my backyard, Chicago. And it's such a pleasure meeting you and working with Marie before. She's such a pleasure to work with, and the rest of your the people on your show. I can't wait to get to know them better. And you guys are so welcoming. And I know I'm a little nervous because this is like new to me. I've never been
Okay.
talking to 18 million people at the same time. Oh, maybe that's a Trumpism. I don't know.
No, hey, 18 trillion. Come on, Mike. Come on, give us
18
some.
gazillion
Gazillion.
people.
Gazillion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think I should get up in the morning with some kind of crazy ideas like that, Marie. Maybe, people will start believing what we are saying over here.
Oh my God.
Dr. Sheila White, thank you so much for joining the conversation today. Always a
Yes.
pleasure. And Marie, thank you. Mike, thank you. Reed, thank you so much. And we are missing Maria today. Maria is doing lots of international travel now. And after she comes back, she will be part of the show. And anytime, folks, that you want to come back and visit with us, do go to our website, tlsradio.com. And also, you can visit our YouTube channel. We need more people to subscribe to the YouTube channel so we can start growing that base. We also have now a Substack page, thanks to Murray Newman, who brought me into the Substack world. Okay. So we're going to be having more fun as the year progresses. Next Sunday, we have got the 7th Congressional District candidates joining us. And if you have any questions, any concerns, Feel free to even text us after the show. You can use our off-show
The preceding
number, which is
program, The
312
Lightning Strike, was sponsored by
PLS
Mohammed Faheem, and to the
8182.
extent
Thank you
applicable
so
to their
much.
guests,
Over and out
the
for today.
views and opinions expressed
New Year,
therein do
everyone.
not necessarily
guys.
reflect those of
Bye-bye.
Heartland Signal, LLC, or its management.